I'm Bob Brill. He's Erik Kramer. Welcome to Kramer and Brill, an NFL podcast and video cast. And each week we take a look at what's going on in the NFL. And during the season, we analyze your fantasy picks. And this week we're taking a look at, what's going on with the fantasy draft upcoming. And some of us have already drafted. But this week in particular is an important week because all the NFL preseason games are done. They have another couple of weeks for they pick or start the season. And the thing about that is, of course, we've got a couple of weeks for those cuts to come down. And today, we're recording on Tuesday. Today is the day when the next series of cuts comes down. So my esteemed colleague, former Bears Lions quarterback, Erik Kramer, and I will be taking, seeing where it's at and giving you some ideas and discussing where this whole thing goes as we get ready for the start of another NFL season. And before I start, last week, you and I talked about whether I should keep in my fantasy draft. I was down to two guys. It's a keeper league, a dynasty league, so I can keep 11, and I was down to trying to decide if I should keep Juju Smith-Schuster, who's playing with Patrick Mahomes, or Gabriel Davis, who's playing with Josh Allen. And you said it was a toss-up, but
hold on. I thought it was Hawkinson.
Oh, yes. Oh my God, yes. Well,
there you are, fixated once again on only Steeler people who have either played for, rooted for, lived there, passed through town once or twice.
Yeah, you're right. Here I was. Okay, I had this big setup planned, but it goes.
Well, go ahead. If it was Juju Smith-Schuster, tell me what was going to happen.
Okay, it was Juju, and I decided to keep Hawkinson based on what you were saying. And so I came down. I had to keep either Juju Smith-Schuster or Gabriel Davis, who's playing with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And you said, and we talked about it, and kind of a toss-up, right? So I kept Juju, and I cut Davis,
which I think is the right thing to do. But go ahead.
Okay, all right. Well, I cut Davis, and I figured if I wanted him, I could pick him up maybe third round, right? And this, which is really would be the 14th round if you were playing in a starter league. Then in our dynasty league draft, which starts out at round 12. Davis was the overall number one pick. And I got really razzed.
Just so you know, Jamarcus Russell was, and a lot of others. Ryan Leaf went second. There's a lot of busts that went up there at number one.
Well, I'm hoping this doesn't come back and to bite me in the butt. But I'm sold on Juju with playing with Mahomes. I really am. I think
that's a great move.
So, but in the end, I did okay. I just didn't get a running back two. I've got Najee Harris. I didn't get a running back two that I wanted, but I did get Kenny Pickett at number 4. And believe it or not, I didn't think I'd get him. I traded up. I traded Ezekiel Ellis for a second round pick, or Ezekiel Elliott. Excuse me, Ezekiel Elliott, who I've had since the beginning. I traded him for the number 14 pick overall, which was the number 2 pick. And I
think that was a good move.
Yeah. And because I've got Tony Pollard, and I didn't think I'd get him, but George Pickens was there and I took him. I think
that's a good move too.
Yeah.
That's an interesting scenario right there. Because you got someone playing well who I never thought would in Trubisky. Mm-hmm. And then Kenny Pickett has picked up like he's playing in the backyard right now.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, and eventually it's going to be Pickett to Pickens. We know that at some point. And I was just shocked that I got those guys where I got them, and kind of hacked off one of my other guys in our league who we brought in last year, who's one of my longtime friends. Let's just put it this way: we've known each other since I was like 8 years old, and he's still in Pittsburgh. So, so he keeps saying things like, "I can't get any Steeler players because you got them all." Well, I tried not to this year.
My little connection to is Matt Canada one year when he was a college coach. My former quarterback coach and coordinator with the Bears, a guy named Ron Turner, who when he went to Illinois,
right,
he ran a quarterback receiver camp down there. So I was down there. Matt Canada I'd met for the first time, and we were talking, just quarterback playing stuff. And now here he is, the
offense coordinator.
Yeah, nice bright spot for the Steelers.
Yeah,
during this, what I think is going to be a big turnaround year.
I think so too. I think he's out of the Roethlisberger mode now. When he's got some mobile quarterbacks and where he can actually do something else. So looking forward to big things this year. We'll see. All the odds are saying the Steelers won't win 8 games, but I think they'll do better than that. If the key to them is the offensive line. I mean, the offensive line looks like it may have gotten worse, which like you were saying. Do I want
That's
to
not
back
good.
there? Well, we'll see how Trubisky does. So see how, because I think he's going to start too. All right, so let's look at some key cuts so far in trades. The Dolphins released Sony Michel after a short burst with the Rams, and they signed with Miami. Now he's out of a job. Then Carolina picked up some wideout depth for Baker Mayfield by trading for 2 picks. They gave up 2 picks, 2 pretty good picks for Laviska Shenault, who in 2 seasons has 121 catches. So we're off to this mode of some early names. Sony Michel used to be a bigger name. He's gone now, and he may pick up with somebody else. What are you thinking at this point?
Well, I think of the situation that you just mentioned. I think the Laviska Shenault pickup. Even though he's quietly gone under the radar, but he's a name that pops up throughout the season. And so I think that could be a good pickup. And I mean, there's others out there. Sony Michel surprised me, but it's hard. It is really hard for running backs to maintain a level of sort of top shelf execution as we're now seeing with Ezekiel Elliott over the last few years.
Yeah.
So there's some other names out here or in what's going on right now that are impressive to me so far.
And who's that?
Well, I think just the Bears in general. I think their defense stands out. A lot of these young players that they have are to me look very solid in terms of depth. I think their offensive line went in as a complete, what in the heck are we going to do here? And the guy that's really stepped up is Tevin Jenkins, who went from left tackle to missing to right tackle to demoted to now left guard, who's put in the 2 guards with him and Jones have put in a solid showing. And as you were talking about the cut downs, they still might not be starting because that's the Bears are going to be one of the key players as these rosters on other teams get chopped down. As good as the Bears have played up front, those 2 in particular might not be starting.
There's one name out there that it's really kind of confusing for me. I just don't know what to think about it. Let's see what you think. I mean, it looks like Jimmy Garoppolo is going to stay in San Francisco. He takes him to the Super Bowl last year, and all of a sudden, and he's going to be replaced. Everybody knows that because they drafted a high college quarterback. Yeah, who's getting ready to start. So what is Jimmy Garoppolo? What are we thinking and what's going on with him here?
What I think just happened was the 49ers just got themselves for 1 year the best backup quarterback in the NFL. And he's a guy that goes completely unnoticed throughout the season, and yet all he does is win, typically make good decisions, and deliver the ball in, tight little spots. And is he a big play caliber quarterback? No, probably never was. But he's a guy that can win a lot of games for you. And should Trey Lance falter in some way or get injured, I think the 49ers would be better off than about any NFL team I could think of right now.
The interesting thing is a lot of people don't remember that he was Tom Brady's backup in New England, and for years before he actually went to San Francisco, and then he's played there, and he was backing up there, and then he was starting, and then he goes to the Super Bowl, and he's been a free agent. He doesn't get, and he's had some injury issues the last couple of years too. So I can understand why teams may not want to take a chance on him. But I mean, here's, like you said, I think he is probably, if not the best, in one of the top 2 or 3 backup quarterbacks for emergency purposes. And like I said, if the rookie from last year,
realize this, he's been there 5 years, so that's probably the best system in the NFL.
True.
And they've got a lot of good people there. So he's, to me, like you were just saying too, he knows the system. He's won big games. He's 4-2 in the playoffs. And I know it's more than just him, but I think he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And what else would you want in a guy as a backup quarterback that has been a starter and a legit one in this league?
And then we go to another quarterback, and I'm not bringing him up because of the Steelers, just because of the situation, and that's Mason Rudolph. It's pretty obvious, I think, to everybody concerned. We'll have to wait and see what the next 2 weeks. Mike Tomlin may surprise everybody, but it looks like Mitch Trubisky's going to start for the Steelers. Kenny Pickett has been playing very well, so he's going to be there and getting some, the backup reps and ready to move in at a moment's notice, which leaves Mason Rudolph either going to the practice squad, which isn't going to happen, or they trade him. And Omar Khan's been getting a lot of offers to trade for him. Where does he go? I mean, you think of Carolina because Sam Darnold is out 4 to 6 weeks. There's a shot there. I mean, who else needs a backup quarterback, or maybe a quarterback who can step in who's seasoned?
Well, the Bears, for one. I mean, their backup right now is Trevor Siemian, and who, depending on how you think of things, Mason Rudolph could be a fine replacement there. It just depends. The Bears, I don't think they're not in the business of giving away draft picks at the moment. And so what I think there would be a team out there that, as you mentioned, the Steelers having some issues on their offensive line still.
Right. That's what they're looking for.
This could be a situation where, Mason Rudolph could net them an offensive lineman.
I think that's probably what they're holding out for. Because he's making $3 million this year, and he's only locked in for this year. So, I mean, you have to make the move now because you're not going to sign him as a free agent. That's not going to happen next year unless Trubisky is gone, and he's got a 2-year deal. So, and then we move on to something that just happened the other day, and fortunately, it's not going to be as bad as it could have been. That's Brian Robinson, the rookie for Washington. No. I forget where he's playing. Anyway, Brian Robinson.
You have it right, Washington.
That's right. It's because he's backing up Gibson. Just had a brain lapse there. So Brian Robinson gets shot during a robbery attempt. He'll be out an unknown amount of time. He was reportedly shot in the leg and the rear end. And they're saying at least 4 weeks, which is pretty doggone good when you get shot twice. We'll have to wait and see. We're hearing this morning he is out of the hospital. So that's the good news. And you look at these situations, and there's another situation where Calvin Ridley has been harassed by a gang that is evidently targeting some famous people down in, or well-heeled people down in Atlanta. I mean, the biggest thing these guys see is, I know in covering news, it never fails when there's a robbery. It's a Rolex watch that comes out the door, a $60,000 watch. So. Maybe, I don't know if you ever wore any bling like that, but I mean, is it a bad idea for these guys? They're rock stars now, and whether it's at a Hollywood party or it's a party somewhere else, these guys are wearing this kind of, how do they protect themselves? Or do they?
Well, okay. So here's just on average, right? Here's a normal guy making just, nobody even knows his name. He's making $5 or $10 million a year.
Right. So
you would think the guys that are making upwards of 50 and 100 in their contract, you'd think they'd hire a security firm, wouldn't they? And that's one way. And I think the only way is if you want to go anywhere, and you've made yourself a target just by virtually doing nothing, signing a contract. And so that's definitely something I think that today's athlete, not just football, have to consider.
Well, that brings to mind when you were starting for the Bears in your heyday, could you go to a 7-Eleven? Could you go to a grocery store and shop? Did you feel comfortable doing that? Yeah. I mean, it's like a lot of people say, okay, obviously Michael Jackson couldn't do that. He couldn't go to Disneyland. He'd have to rent Disneyland, which he could afford to do for the day.
Or build one, yeah.
Yeah, but I look at it and I say, okay, I mean, don't have any problem. I'm on the radio. Nobody knows my face. Uh, you know, but I just look at that and say, okay, is it, what kind of money that you make now or exposure that you get on TV means you cannot go to the A&P, we'll put it the old way.
I remember when NFL salaries weren't even you couldn't get them. Like nobody knew what somebody made.
Yeah, that's true.
And then obviously all that has switched now, and I think that's something that these players definitely have to take into consideration. And you would think, if I'm the NFL, if I'm Roger Goodell and the pack of people that run the NFL, you would think that would be part of what they offer or educate people on. Because we're talking, some of them are 20 years old, 21, 22.
Yeah.
And so that would be, just sort of along with the rookie symposium, there would be sort of this overall reaching program that would educate a lot of the players or all the players in their league. I mean, it would be in the NFL's best interest, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, any league, they should be doing that because, I mean, these guys, let's face it, when you're making that kind of money, what do you do with it? You want to show it, and, the average.
Some do, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of these kids come from really, really, poor backgrounds, and the situation with them is they've never had this before. They even dreamed of having it before. Maybe it was the dream, but, how do you realize it? And, you're used to having, one person meet all the needs in your family, maybe have 3 or 4 kids, and, just.
Well, how about when the guy comes out of college and he's got 52 new cousins?
Yes.
On the payroll.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the entourage,
so. You don't even have to go outside your own family sometimes.
Exactly. Well, and then of course you run into situations like with the former tight end for New England, who obviously came from a gang background. So,
well,
so that's
he didn't, but he acted like he did.
Yeah, couple of players before we wrap up here. Couple of names that are popping up, and one is Josh Gordon. Looks like the Chiefs are going to release him. I don't think there's any surprise there. And the other is Kenyon Drake, who looks like after he get released by the Raiders, is probably going to sign with the Ravens, who are in need of running back. So let's talk about Gordon first. Gordon's got a history. It's just like I can't even think back to when this guy was great because it lasted for such a short time, and he's been in and out, in and out, in and out. It's like, why do people even sign this guy?
Well, I think anyone who does has learned the tough way that the guy who's most responsible for Josh Gordon is Josh Gordon. And until that ever corrects itself, people who invest in him in any way are going to probably have some issues themselves, whether it's financially or any other way. And it basically comes down to, can Josh Gordon responsibly take care of Josh Gordon decisions? And so far, it's been, as you mentioned, years and years and years since he's probably put a year together of consecutively good decisions.
Yeah.
And so I think this, to me, like the one before and the one before and the one before and the one before that and the 10 before that, was the wrong thing to do. And if he were to get help and in some way participate in life outside of football consistently for a period of time, then maybe. But I don't see how people keep continuing to, and there'll probably be another one or two that jump on maybe we can fix this issue for him. No, you can't.
Yeah. I mean, he's become like Antonio Brown, the same situation, not quite as bad. Antonio Brown is not the drugs; it's the other stuff, the distractions. But and he hasn't signed with anybody yet either. Kenyon Drake, possibly the Ravens. You see that as a big plus for them?
Could be. I mean, they have all the athletes in the league, pretty much. And yeah, I mean, if somebody can add a dimension that they don't already have, and the Ravens love to run the football and throw it to the backs and throw it to the tight ends, and yeah, I mean, he could definitely be, to me, a productive player there. I don't see why not.
Yeah, I think it's a good move too. I mean, he's been around a while, but and he's being replaced there by he was like the fourth string running back, number four back, maybe number five before they cut him. So that'll do it for another edition of Kramer and Brill. Don't forget to join us next time wherever you get your shows and on my Bob Brill YouTube channel. For my friend and colleague Erik Kramer, we'll see you next time.